Before we dive in, if you're passionate about history that actually teaches you something useful, hit subscribe to Strange History. Every week we uncover forgotten wartime innovations that shaped the world and can still be applied today, sometimes in your own kitchen, workshop, or field gear. Now let's start with a fact that might surprise even the most seasoned historian. By 1943, most Allied soldiers weren't drinking real coffee. The global supply chain had collapsed. Coffee shipments from Latin America were diverted to fuel the war effort, and naval blockades meant beans couldn't reach the front. Yet soldiers still had to stay alert, often for days at a time, under freezing, sleepless, and chaotic conditions. So what did they do? They brewed coffee without coffee beans. And here's the remarkable part. This improvised drink made from wild roots, grains, and a touch of chemistry not only kept them awake but may have been healthier than actual coffee. World War II was a total war economy. That meant everything, from rubber to sugar to coffee, was rationed or redirected toward industrial and military needs. In Europe, the Axis powers lost access to tropical imports early on, while the Allies restricted luxury goods to prioritize essentials. Coffee, once a daily ritual, became an impossible luxury almost overnight. Soldiers, sailors, and civilians turned to substitutes, known at the time as ersatz coffee. The German army had its own state-issued blend called Muckefuck, made from roasted barley, acorns, and chicory. The British experimented with roasted carrots and parsnips. American GIs used grain-based instant mixes developed by the Quartermaster Corps to simulate the flavor and function of coffee. But the real innovation came from field improvisation. The countless soldiers and partisans who learned to make caffeine-like brews from what they could scavenge in forests, fields, and burned-out farms. These weren't just morale boosters, they were survival tools. At first glance, it sounds impossible. How could a brew made from acorns, barley, or chicory keep soldiers awake without caffeine? The secret lies in biochemistry, and how the body interprets bitterness and trace alkaloids. Take chicory root, for example. When roasted, it produces compounds like inulin and volatile oils that stimulate digestion and circulation, giving a mild energy boost similar to low-dose caffeine. Dandelion roots and acorns, when roasted dark, create tannins that mimic coffee's bitter edge while encouraging adrenal activity. Many soldiers also mixed in roasted rye or barley malt, both containing natural sugars that convert into energy quickly. Combined, the bitterness tricked the brain into an alert state, while the slow-release carbohydrates sustained endurance. It wasn't the same chemical hit as caffeine, but it produced a similar state of readiness, perfect for soldiers who needed stamina more than a quick spike. Interestingly, captured field manuals and declassified ration notes from both German and Soviet archives show that commanders encouraged these natural brews to maintain morale and body warmth during long operations. In other words, the fake coffee became an officially recognized survival aid. If you want to experience what these soldiers drank, you can easily reproduce a historically accurate version. Start with chicory root, available in most health stores or growing wild if you know how to identify it. Wash the roots thoroughly, slice them thin, and roast them in an oven or dry pan at around 180 degrees Celsius, or 350 degrees Fahrenheit, until they're dark brown but not burnt. Grind the roasted roots into a coarse powder, just like coffee grounds. Next, blend in equal parts roasted barley or rye grains. Barley adds body and foam, while rye brings a toasty depth closer to espresso. Some wartime recipes added a small handful of crushed dandelion root, or even burnt sugar, to replicate the roasted caramel notes of coffee beans. To brew, use 1 tablespoon of the mixture per cup of hot water, steep for 5 minutes, and strain. The result is dark, aromatic, and surprisingly satisfying. More complex than instant coffee, with a nutty, smoky finish. Soldiers often brewed it over open fires, letting it boil longer to extract every bit of flavor. Some even added a spoonful of condensed milk or a pinch of salt to stretch the flavor. The recipe worked because it was practical, sustainable, and didn't depend on imports, qualities that survivalists today still prize. Modern research has shed new light on why these wartime coffee substitutes are worth revisiting. Chicory and dandelion roots are rich in prebiotics, natural fibers that support gut health. Roasted grains offer trace minerals like magnesium and potassium, and unlike coffee, they contain no caffeine, meaning no dependency, dehydration, or sleep disruption. For soldiers living under constant stress, this was really critical. Their nervous systems were already in overdrive, and, well, real caffeine could trigger shakes, dehydration, or those exhaustion crashes. The natural alternative, though, sustained alertness without breakdown. For civilians today, the same principle definitely applies. If you rely on caffeine to stay focused but struggle with anxiety, digestive issues, or sleep problems, a roasted root coffee might just give you a smoother, more balanced energy. You're drinking what soldiers did when endurance mattered more than stimulation. The story of World War II's coffee without coffee is really a lesson in adaptability. When the global system broke down, people turned to knowledge of the land. Farmers, medics, and soldiers rediscovered plants that had sustained humans for centuries: chicory, barley, acorns, rye, and transformed necessity into innovation. That's why historians studying wartime rations often point to food improvisation as a key reason for morale and endurance. A warm cup, even made from weeds and grain, gave structure and comfort to chaos. There's also a modern survival lesson here. Real resilience means knowing how to substitute, not just store. In a crisis, whether that's a disrupted supply chain or an off-grid situation, the ability to brew a stimulant, antiseptic, or disinfectant from natural materials can mean the difference between fatigue and focus. If you're a historian who experiments, a prepper, or a survivalist, you can use these same techniques. Learn to identify chicory and dandelion in the wild. Practice roasting and grinding roots over an open flame. Keep small amounts of roasted grain mixes sealed in jars. They last for months and require no electricity to brew. Or, if you're simply curious about history through taste, try replacing 1 cup of coffee a day with a soldier's blend. You'll understand firsthand what wartime ingenuity tasted like, and you might even prefer it. The story of the WWII coffee substitute isn't just about soldiers staying awake. It's about what humans do when the world runs out of comfort. They adapt, they learn, and sometimes they create something better than before. If you value this kind of deep dive history, the kind that connects innovation, necessity, and survival, make sure to subscribe to Strange History. Share this with a fellow history buff or outdoorsman who loves discovering what the past still has to teach. Because sometimes, the smartest solutions were already perfected 80 years ago, over a tin mug and a campfire.